Hey, what's going on, guys? The Horror Man back with the next Top 20 for 2020. This time I'll be counting down my top 20 favorite 70s horror films. The Top 20 for 2020 series was co-created by myself and my buddy Jason from Horrific Nightmares. Twice a month we randomly select a theme and count down our top 20 favorite movies from that theme. We can only feature 20 films, no honorable mentions. We can only feature one film per franchise. And Jason and I only include films we actually own on physical media. The randomly selected theme this time was 70s horror films. As with all of my other rankings, I will be starting at number 20 and working my way to number 1. I will also not be saying too much about each of the films to keep the video short. And please keep in mind, this is just my personal opinion. So, here we go. My top 20 for 2020 of my top 20 favorite 70s horror films. Coming in at number 20 is The Asphyx. This one has always stuck with me. It has a great premise and a fantastic ending. At number 19 is Alice, Sweet Alice, a 70s slasher film with a surreal setting, and the introduction of Brooke Shields. Speaking of surreal, that's the perfect word to describe my number 18 pick, Eraserhead. What exactly is Eraserhead about? I'm not sure even David Lynch can answer that question. And if he can, he won't, because that's just how he is. Whatever it is, Eraserhead is a work of art, and is number 18 in my top 20. At number 17 is the obligatory inclusion of The Exorcist. Yes, it's a classic film. Yes, I do love this film, but I do think it has some pacing issues, and that's why I ranked it so low. Regardless, it needed to be on this list, so it's here at number 17. Coming in at number 16 is a movie I probably would have ranked higher if I had done this about 10 years ago, because at one time I thought this was an absolute brilliant classic. I'm not saying I still don't feel that way, but it's been so long since I've watched it that it was difficult for me to rank this any higher than number 16. We have even more surrealism in my number 15 pick, House. This is the Japanese film from the 70s, not the 80s movie starring William Katt. House is like David Lynch meets The Evil Dead. It's like watching a nightmare unfold on screen. It's crazy. At number 14 is an Argento classic, Suspiria. It's a slasher film, it's a witch film, it's a masterpiece. I considered including a few different made-for-TV 70s horror movies on this list, but I went with this one. Don't Be Afraid of the Dark at number 13. I think of this one often. It definitely leaves a lasting impression. This here is the VHS big box release, which at one time was considered one of the rarest VHS tapes, and it was very, very hard to obtain. Here's one I'm not sure I'll see on anyone else's lists. The Iron Rose at number 12. It's about a young couple who find themselves lost in an abandoned graveyard after going for a stroll. As the sun goes down, they cannot find their way out. I especially like the creepy clown in this movie. Coming in at number 11 is Tourist Trap. I almost want to rank this one higher because this movie is awesome, but I just can't do it because of the following films, including my number 10 pick, Alien. It's a classic. It's like a creature feature slasher film in space. My number 9 pick is another classic slasher, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. What's a 70s horror film list without this movie? And I'm sure other people would probably rank it higher, but for me, it's number 9. Coming in at number 8 is one of my all-time favorite horror anthology films, Tales from the Crypt. Which of the stories is my favorite? I really can't answer that because I love all of them. Of course, I have to make special mention of And All Through the House. At number 7 is one of my personal favorite slasher films of all time, not just the 70s. Massacre at Central High. This is one of those obscurities that everyone seems to know about, they just haven't seen, because for some crazy reason, this movie is lost on VHS, in the US anyway. I reviewed this one last year during the Slashback Challenge, and it's one of my favorite movies I reviewed for Slashback to this day. Oddly enough, I also reviewed my number 6 pick during the Slashback Challenge last year, Jaws 2. I reviewed it during Slasher Plus Week, because Jaws 2 definitely plays out like a slasher film. As much as I love the original Jaws, I prefer Jaws 2. It's just more entertaining to me. Which brings us into the top 5, with another one of my all-time favorite slasher films, Black Christmas. As much as I love it though, it's not my favorite Christmas slasher film. That is my number 4 pick. Silent Night, Bloody Night. Those of you who know me well know how much I love this movie. I consider it to be the most underrated horror film of all time. I feel like not only Black Christmas, but Halloween borrowed a lot from it, and it does not get enough credit. But here it is at number 4, in my top 20 favorite 70s horror films. We're into the top 3 now with this classic, Dawn of the Dead. This one should be on everyone else's lists as well, and if it's not, I'd be very surprised. The same could be said about my number 2 pick, which I'm sure will be a lot of people's number 1, John Carpenter's Halloween. Yes, it's here at number 2. That may be surprising, but if you really think about it and you know me well, you probably know my number 1. It's not only one of my favorite horror films of all time, but it's one of my all-time favorite movies. There's just nothing like it. My number 1 favorite 70s horror film is Phantasm. I've mentioned in the past, I consider Don Coscarelli to be my favorite director, and Phantasm is arguably his masterpiece. If we're talking about all of his films though, I'd personally rank Kenny and Company slightly higher. But Phantasm is a classic regardless. It creates its own universe of horror, and I never ever get tired of watching it. Phantasm is my number 1 favorite 70s horror film. So there you have it guys, my top 20 for 2020 of my top 20 favorite 70s horror films. What do you think? Comment below and let me know. And be sure to check out Jason's top 20 as well. Also, as always, we invite you to join in. We'd love to see your rankings. Thanks for watching guys. Be kind, subscribe.